to our Twitter handle. My Twitter handle is at Cecile Gay Lagos. Feel free to tag me. Since they're still trying to sort that out, and it is rather disappointing because I've been looking forward to this. We actually were supposed to have this conversation 3 weeks ago. We had to postpone it till today. But here's the thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start by reading a passage to you. If we've got the time, I'll read more of it. But here's a passage from the book. Hold on. Let me give you an idea. No, actually, let me read the passage first and then I'll tell you. We didn't know what to do. My mother said they have already killed 2 of her children. They cannot kill me too. I told her, it's better I die than be taken away by those men. She came up with a plan to keep me safe. We discussed it in detail and I agreed. My mother gave a man we know money to dig a hole for her. He dug it according to her specifications. The way rats dig their holes, how rabbits create entrances. My mother added metal and made it like a house underground. It was about the size of one of the shelters in our IDP camp, with small passages jutting from the main space. She put gari, salt, water, a stove, a lot of yajin, kuli and a prayer mat inside. She told me I should not remain static in one place, but keep moving around like a rabbit. That I should soak gari in water and eat it whenever I was hungry. She showed me plastic bags she had brought with her, telling me to defecate inside them, to tie the nylon, designate one part of the hole as a toilet, and throw the bags in there. She said, it is not my wish to put my child in such conditions. I am not comfortable with this, but there is no option. She told me, if I survive, that's fine. But if I die, we should forgive each other for any wrongs we committed. She said she would not visit me, so people would not wonder why she was coming to the area. She would forget she had a daughter until it was safe and she could get me out. She told me to enter, and I got into the hole. She covered the entrance by putting rubbish on top and all around. So it looked like a bola, a place where household waste is thrown and nobody would suspect. Then she walked away. When I first went into the hole, I was afraid, and this fear is what made me decide to enter. I was also broken-hearted, coping with having lost my brothers, plus thinking, how can someone enter a hole and stay inside? You are alive and not dead. When my mother covered the hole and walked away, I kept telling myself to leave everything to Allah and trust in Him. That was a passage from It's Better I Die Than Be Taken. I can see they're trying to fix the technical. Are they trying to get the guest back? Pardon? It's been fixed. Okay, we've got to get the guest back. We're trying to get the guest back. So that's a passage from If It's Better I Die Than Be Taken. That particular story is not fiction. It was not made up. That particular story is from a book called The World Was in Our Hands. And here's what you will remember. Voices from the Boko Haram conflict. Yes, so when you think Boko Haram, you constantly think, oh, the Chibok girls. My guest today is the author of this incredible book, and it's a collection of accounts. When I say accounts, I'm talking about those that it happened to. Her name is Chitra Nagarajan. She is a journalist and writer who writes on climate change, conflict, feminism, foreign policy, migration, Nigeria, and the wider Lake Chad region. Chitra, can you hear me now?
I can hear you perfectly. Hello.
Thank
Good
you
afternoon.
so much for joining us, Chitra. I read this book. I don't know whether you heard me reading out the passage. One of
Is it no?
the story, the passage. Okay, let me tell you the passage that I read out from. It's from "It's Better I Die Than Be Taken." I'm sure you're familiar
Oh,
with it.
yes.
700 interviews you did, and in this book contains what 47 or 50 stories. When I say stories, accounts
Mm,
of those that it happened to, right?
mhm.
Talk to us about the journey, what inspired this book, and then I'm going to be asking you later which of the stories connected with you the most, because, or should I say, affected you is the word, not even connected, affected you the most, because the one that really, all of these stories affected me, but the one that really, I had to keep taking a breath is the passage that I read out. Over to you. So what inspired this, Chitra?
Yes. I was living and working in my degree in Borno State. At that time, I was doing work on human rights and peace building, working for an organization that worked with communities to identify the threats that they face to their security and think about what they themselves could do to address them and what they could advocate to others to do. So, for example, one of the issues that we discussed was election-related violence. And so these people did a lot of great work going from house to house, talking especially to young people
Mm-hmm.
about not being mobilized by politicians. Other issues they faced was, for example, after a Boko Haram attacked, their boreholes being destroyed
Mm-hmm.
and advocating to humanitarian agencies to get them fixed. At the same time, I was doing workshops with soldiers on the front lines and also with members of the CJTF and other self-protection groups on human rights, humanitarian law, and how to reduce the risk of harming civilians during their operations. And I was doing lots of research and interviews with people, talking to people about their lives, the issues that they were experiencing, what they needed. And during the course of that, there were just such incredible stories of what people had gone through. And I found, so I was living in my degree, but I would come to Abuja, where I had been living before, um, to spend time with friends and for work. And I found that people in Abuja, people in Lagos, even people in Kano and Bauchi had no idea of what people were going through. Because what was being presented in the media was either one story, the Chibok girls,
Mm-hmm.
or statements from Shekau, or the Nigerian military. And so the attacks that were happening, the day-to-day military maneuvers, or one particular story. So I didn't set out to write a book. But I think through my work, I was just uncovering such incredible people and incredible stories that I felt very compelled to write this book, to write down some of what I was hearing and
Mm-hmm.
experiencing, to make sure that people in Nigeria and the rest of the world outside the Northeast know about what's happening in the country, and also so that future generations know what their ancestors went through. Because you and I know
Mm-hmm.
that we have a very particular view of what happened in the past, and it's based on what has been written down or what has been told, mostly by men in power, completely erasing the experiences of women,
Mm-hmm.
people of religious and ethnic minorities, queer people also. Um, and so, because of that, we have a very particular idea of history and culture and tradition. And yet, what is happening in the Northeast completely explodes ideas, for example, of victimhood. Not that women are not victims, they are, but there's
Mm-hmm.
a lot more going on. And I knew that if we didn't take action in 50, 100, even 20 years from now, people would go back to talking about, oh, women, they can't do this because of this. Our tradition doesn't allow it. And I thought it would be so powerful to write something down now for the future to make sure that these lies that are told to us do not continue to be told.
Indeed. Now, 700 interviews. Incredible. So you went from, tell us the sort of geographical, spread that you covered.
So in Nigeria,
even beyond
Adamawa,
Nigeria, I mean, yeah, go on.
Yes, yeah. So in Nigeria, in Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe State, most of the stories in the book are from Borno. And during the course of my my time working, I have been to 18 out of 27 of Borno's local governments. So, and the ones that I haven't been to at the time were really not safe. That was the reason that I didn't go. But also there are stories there from Nigeria's neighbors as well. Because, of course, we think of the Boko Haram conflict as something of our own, but it has spread across borders into Niger, into Chad, and into Cameroon. And you really see the way that the conflict has affected the other countries as well, in terms of insecurity, displacement, and even where there isn't much violence and insecurity, just the economic costs of the violence in terms of disrupted trade, and people not being able to cross borders the way that they used to. Yes, so I looked across all 4 countries and I really tried to make sure that I spoke to people of different communities, different ethnic groups, different religious groups, Christians, Muslims, also followers of traditional religions, to try and get as complete a picture as was possible.
So from there, you came up. I mean, I imagine you had to condense everything, all the interviews into this sort of, 47 odd stories. One of the things, whilst I was reading it, I remember thinking to myself, Chitra must have suffered secondary trauma whilst collecting these stories. Would I be right?
Yes, you're completely right. Yes. And some of these stories, they were very easy. As the person was talking, I knew that this needed to be in the book. Other stories, I went looking for particular types of stories and particular types of people that I wanted to reflect in the book. But I would say every story that's in the book affected me personally in one way or the other. The story that you read out about the young girl, I think her story, but also her mother's story.
Yes.
Yes, I think that was because when I was talking to this young girl, and she's still quite young, I was just imagining.
So tell us, this happened to her at 13. I only read the passage. I wanted you to do better justice to it than I did.
Which was the passage that you read?
So I read from when she and her mother had the conversation about she didn't want to die. She said, I'd rather be dead, or it's better if I die. Yeah. That's where I read from.
So
I only read this very short, 3 or 4 paragraphs, nothing much.
Okay. So as you and I know, there have been mass abductions of young girls, also adult women of all ages, but young girls in particular. Mothers have been very worried and concerned about their daughters. And I say mothers because often, not that fathers are not concerned about their daughters, but often we found that in many communities, because men were being targeted by the fighters, by the armed fighters, a lot of men escaped those communities before they came to them, leaving women there to try and figure out ways to protect themselves, protect their children, protect their elderly relatives, decide whether to stay there or find ways to go to safety. And a lot of mothers, so this is just one story. And I've come across another story quite like this, but there are lots of different strategies that women have employed to safeguard their children, their daughters from being abducted, their sons from being killed or forcibly recruited. And there are many stories of that in the book. But basically, here, the daughter and her mother knew that one of the things that would happen when they came to their town was that they would go and they would abduct all the teenage girls. Um, and they had already lost two brothers who had been killed or forcibly recruited into the group. And so, from the perspective of the mother, she did not want to lose another child.
And the brothers had come to actually get their sister, didn't they? When they realized that this was going to be happening in their village.
Yes. They tried to rescue the sister and get her out. Unfortunately, they were unsuccessful. And so I think it's a very extreme step to think of your 13-year-old daughter digging a hole, keeping her in there, not knowing if you're ever going to be able to go and rescue her. But for the mother and also for the daughter, they didn't feel like they had any other option. And she spent months in the hole.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine because, for me, like just even the thought of spending 24 or 48 hours in darkness with nobody there, nobody to talk to, no books to read, nothing to listen to.
Yeah.
So I actually cannot imagine how she survived. And by the time the soldiers came to their town,
let me help you out there. Let me read that part. I hope you're all listening. Yes, it's as I said, this is not fiction. It is somebody's lived experience. A young girl. She was 13. Her mother was forced to do this to avoid her being taken by Boko Haram because her two brothers had already been killed. And throughout the book, they refer to it as them. They refer Boko Haram, and I'm going to ask you about that, Chitra. So let me read this passage. So she said, the daughter continues, I stayed in that hole for 9 months alone, without anything to do, not knowing if it was day or night or how many days or weeks or months had passed, without seeing anyone, without food after it finished, without even seeing sunlight for more than 9 months. If I hadn't been there, I definitely would have been abducted. When the Yaran Malam came to Madagali, our neighbor, the informant, I told them my mother has sons and a daughter. After my brothers were killed, she reminded them my mother has a teenage daughter. They came saying they wanted to marry me. Mama swore she didn't have a grown girl, that she only had her sons, her grandchildren, and a young daughter. But they kept insisting. They entered and searched her room, but didn't find it. I was already in the hole by then, and they kept disturbing me. They kept disturbing her. She decided to pretend to be mad. She picked up things from the dustbin. She defecated and played with the shit. She walked around naked, without even one piece of clothing. Also, that the Yaran Malan would not come and ask her, where is your girl? It worked. Chitra. She ate her own feces. The mother ate her own feces in order to protect, to save, to stop her daughter from being taken by them. Because we're going to, that's the way they kept referring to them throughout the book. Them. I can't. I don't think, I sent out a broadcast message to inform people, my followers, that we were going to be doing this interview. And I used that passage. On my phone, the response was insane. How do these people begin to get beyond, even just exist after this experience?
I think it's very hard. I mean, the things that her mother went through is I interviewed the daughter first,
Mm-hmm.
and what I like to do is, if possible, it wasn't always possible
Mm-hmm.
because some of the places that I had done the interviews, by the time I wanted to go back, they were no longer safe.
Mm.
But where it was possible, I went back to the communities and I showed them what I had written, and I read through the pieces so that they could make corrections or change things, maybe things that they had told me that they didn't want to be in the book, they could delete.
Mm.
And so I did this with this young woman, and I asked her, "Can I talk to your mother too?" And I spoke to her, and I thought that the mother's story would be, it would just be a matter of having a simple conversation with the mother.
Mm-hmm.
She started talking to me.
Mm.
Wow. If you think that this story is intense and touching,
Mm.
like the mother's own is, you know, equally so. And for her, she had done what you talked about, but she had also been beaten because at first they didn't believe that she was mad. And so that's why she went to such extreme lengths.
Mm.
And I think, these men thought, well, no one would pretend to do this. This must actually be real.
Mm.
Um, and I met the mother and daughter a couple of times since. And they're recovering. That it's slow, and the end of the daughter's story talks about how they're both still traumatized
Mm.
and they think about what's happening, and people are counseling them to try and forget.
Mm.
You have to remember there's very little psychosocial support in Northeast Nigeria,
That was the other thing. Yeah.
despite all the attempts of healthcare workers, like Borno-based NGOs, the international community. There's just not enough support for everybody
Mm.
because here you have a whole population that is traumatized to different extents, but everybody needs some kind of psychological assistance.
Mm-hmm.
And this girl, after going through that, has spent over 9 months in a hole by herself. When she was in that hole, she was convinced that everybody above had been killed. So she talks about how she was imagining she in this hole and above on the ground,
Mm.
just dead bodies because everybody had been killed.
Mm.
She wasn't expecting to be rescued, right? So after going through that,
Mm.
at the age of 13 years old, she has received no psychological help whatsoever. And this is very common. So I think it's very hard for people. Um, However, I would say that the people of Northeast Nigeria are absolutely incredible. They are trying to find ways to move on. They are really trying to find ways to support themselves and each other. I think what makes it difficult, two things. First of all, is that the insecurity is continuing. So it's not even that the trauma is in the past. The
Yeah.
trauma is in the past, present, and potentially the future also.
Mm.
And number two, the economic situation. It's easier to move on from trauma if you're living a good life,
Mm.
or at least you know, like a subsistence, I can manage life.
Of course.
If
Yeah.
you're living a life which is in poverty, you're in an IDP camp, you're not in your home,
Mm.
you're reliant on others for food, and sometimes that food comes, sometimes it doesn't come. You have started to set up a business and then something happens. So when I went to visit, the last time I saw them, actually, the mother had saved enough money to start a business selling kose
Mm.
on Akara on the street.
Mm.
But all her money, she was living in a tent in an IDP camp,
Yeah.
had been stolen. So overnight, and she had really tried and really struggled, and her entire livelihood had just gone. And so she was back to square zero. So you can imagine it's not even that you're suffering economic hardship. It's that you're doing all that you can to move on past that,
Mm.
to be able to feed yourself and your family. And then something happens, and then you're back to square zero. And you're having to do that again and again and again. And theft is one reason. The other reason is climate change. You start to plant something and you're hoping that you'll have a good harvest.
Mm.
And maybe for 1, 2, 3, 4 years, like you're managing, and then the rains come heavy and there are floods and your entire harvest is destroyed. So I think that in as much as people do need psychological help, they're trying to find ways to overcome this. but the continued insecurity and the continued economic hardship makes it really difficult for them to do that.
Indeed. There's another one that captured me, and it said, I don't think we're Nigerian.
Mm.
And that speaks to what you were just saying, how they say, they don't get any help. And it's a voice of a man this time,
Yes.
right? He's a man. He was a civil servant. He said, the place I am from in Goza, we now call Boko Haram's headquarters. Although the military focus on Sambisa Forest, the Mandara Mountains continue to be occupied by them. I have not been there for a long time though, as although I am Mafa and an indigene of Goza, I used to be a civil servant working in the National Assembly in Abuja. I ended up in Minawo refugee camp by circumstance. I had to come to my degree to visit my family. When an attack took place on Friday night, we had no option but to relocate. I decided to go with my family, my 2 wives and 7 children, to our village in Goza, where my parents were, so our family could be together. Within 2 weeks, the attacks came to our village. We had to flee to the border, part of thousands who left our homes in this way and crossed to Cameroon. Again, God, Chitra, you've done such an excellent work with this book. And I'll tell you why. People think of Chibok girls when they think Boko Haram. That's it, right? They think, we're still looking for the Chibok girls, which we still continue to look for the Chibok girls. Every year there is, there's an anniversary of the Chibok girls. But every year of that anniversary, nobody comes along to talk about the non-Chibok girls, the forgotten, the unknown names, those who also have this incredible traumatized existence. But beyond that is that nobody speaks to the husbands. Nobody speaks to the man who had a normal life, living in Abuja, working as an ordinary civil servant, like thousands of others in Nigeria, working as a civil servant in no other place but the National Assembly.
Yes.
And now he becomes a man that's living with his family in an IDP camp.
And this man, I interviewed him in 2018. And at that time, he had already been living for a couple of years in this refugee camp in Cameroon. So not even in Nigeria.
Even in Nigeria, yes.
I was last in Cameroon in November last year. So that's November 2024. And he was still there. And I spoke to him. So he's been living in that IDP camp now, that refugee camp, for about 7-8 years. Can you imagine?
No.
And all because he went home to visit his people and that at the time of an attack.
And the crazy thing is, I mean, you would have thought, people think I want to work at the National Assembly. I'll make contact. I'll have this senator's number, this, House of Rep person number, this politician number. But no one is doing anything. I mean, here was a member of your staff that's been trapped in a situation that was not self-made. That's totally unexpected. That's absolutely abhorrent. And nobody has done anything.
Yes. And I asked him, will your Oga not help you go home? And he said, my Oga has told me that he'll help me. He's very happy to pay for my flight back. But the problem is, it's not just me, it's my family.
Exactly.
And even if my Oga will help me and my 2 wives and all my children, what about my mother? What about my cousin? What about my junior brother? And I think that makes it really difficult. And so he chose to stay there with his family in combined hardship rather than be the one person who was able to be saved because of the connection that he had. I think this National Assembly member was willing to pay for him, just him. But how can he go leaving his wives and kids?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not possible. And I think what you said about the men, I think is very important because, I said earlier about how men have faced a lot of risk and danger in the conflict. And we tend to think of this binary of kind of men who are either warriors, like they're soldiers, they're Boko Haram fighters, or they're part of CJT, the the Civilian Joint Task
Yes,
Force.
yes, yes.
So we think of them as people with agency who can do things, make things happen. And we think of women as victims, survivors, things that violence happens to.
Yeah.
However, men have actually experienced a lot because of their gendered vulnerabilities. And often when we talk about gender, we don't talk about men, or we only talk about them in terms of being perpetrators.
Yes.
Which
yes.
is true.
Yes,
So
of
it's
course.
understandable why
Yes.
we do that.
Yes.
At the same time, when Boko Haram came to communities, they went around houses, killing all men and boys over the age of 9 years old, right? And I have spoken to many, many, many women who have told me about the fighters coming to their village, dragging men out of their homes and murdering them. So women are traumatized by this because they have seen their husbands, their fathers, their sons, and all the men that they knew, the men that they grew up with, their childhood playmates, being beheaded in front of them. So that's that. That's the Boko Haram. Then you have soldiers, right? And the soldiers, especially in certain parts of the region, have viewed everybody there with suspicion. And when I say everybody, I mean men of what we call fighting age,
Yeah.
So boys like over the age of 13, 14, 15, up to men when they reach, I guess, 60 or something. All of these, they see them as either Boko Haram or potential Boko Haram. And we know, I mean, the Nigerian military has had a very difficult task, and they have changed over the years. But we know that there was a period where there were very severe human rights abuses.
Yeah.
Some of them still continue. And you had men either killed on the streets or rounded up, arrested and detained without being charged, no trial process. I mean, some of the trials have started in the last few years.
Oh, that's
but there
great.
are still many, many people who are there in prison.
Yeah.
Just because they were a man or they were a Kanuri man in a place where the soldiers thought that they were part of this group. So so I've spoken about Boko Haram, the risks they experience from them. I've spoken about the soldiers, the community militias also, like the Civilian Joint Task Force. They also view men in certain areas as a potential enemy on the one hand, and on the other hand, in many parts of Borno, men have been required to join these groups and put themselves at risk to protect their families. So there are lots of ways that men suffer. Men also suffer because they have left their families ahead of the fighters coming to protect themselves from Boko Haram, from the soldiers, from the CJTF. And I think sometimes when people hear this, they think, oh, these are men being selfish. They've left their families at risk, which I understand because the families are at risk. Also, and they're only saving themselves. But imagine the guilt that you would feel at that, knowing that your kids, especially like your wives, your kids, the people who you have been socialized through gender norms that you must defend and protect. Like a man is what? A man is someone who provides for the family, who defends the family. That's what we're told, right?
Yes, indeed.
Even though in reality that's not always the case.
Especially in such communities more so, yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so there's another story here about another civil servant, actually, from government, who basically moves his family from Maiduguri to his local government in Chibok, thinking it's safer there. Because remember, this was a time where there were attacks in Maiduguri, but the LGA is safe. So he moves them to Chibok, but then the attacks start happening there. And he goes to Chibok the first time he finds them. And then he evacuates them to Madagali in Adamawa State. And there's an attack there. And he goes and he can't find them. And he's going from IDP camp to IDP camp in Yola, trying to find his wife and kids. He's not able to find them. And he talks about how he breaks down and he's in tears and people are asking him what happened. And he's explaining. So just imagine how, I mean, of course, I spoke to his wife as well. And it was very traumatic for her trying to flee Madagali with all of these children. So I don't want to say that his pain was worse than hers, because that's not necessarily the case.
No,
but
because everybody's pain is matters. Yeah, is
yes,
equally.
exactly. But imagine what it would be like as a father and a husband,
Yeah.
to know that to not know whether your wife and children are safe, whether they've been killed, whether they've been abducted, whether your wife is being forced to marry someone else,
Yeah.
whether your daughters are being forced, you know what I mean? Your son. And if they manage to escape, where are they? Like, how are they surviving?
Indeed.
So I think it's been very difficult for everybody in the Northeast for different reasons. Also for the people who joined Boko Haram, like the book also has their stories as well. People who joined.
I'm going to let you tell us that. Hold on one second. You can call. I'm sure you all have questions now. 0201 277 0993. Or the female only line is 0201 465 7190, or send your message to 0809 597 5805. I am in conversation with Chitra. She is the author of The World Was in Our Hands, Voices from the Boko Haram Conflict. Not just voices, experience, lived experience, personal accounts of those who have been victims of Boko Haram and continue to live with the scars of what happened to them. Hold on, you're already calling. Okay, I was going to read in the part. Hold on, Chitra. This is my callers there, my listeners there, like my co-hosts. Short, sharp, and succinct. Hello.
Good afternoon, ma.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Oboli. How are you?
I'm not fine to see you. Good afternoon to your guest as well.
Yes, Chitra, she can hear you. Can you hear her, Chitra?
I can't hear
Okay,
her.
she can't hear. Why can't she hear? Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Hearing you read these stories, reel them out this afternoon, this grueling, captivating, heart-rending stories, Sisi Oge, traumatizes me as I speak. Now, to come and think of those who witnessed this firsthand, I can't but say, God, in this country, what exactly are we doing? Sisi Oge, I want to say thank you to your guest who has brought this to the fore, who has illuminated the darkness that has been pervading us for years. We thought it was just the Chibok girls, but Sisi Oge, she only came here to illuminate that darkness, that ignorance. Is the government listening right now? Nigeria Info is the station you ought to be listening to. Sisi Oge, I don't even know what to say, but God bless you, ma'am.
Thank you.
For bringing her to just recount these experiences. I wish you could get those books so that we too can...
Well, stay listening. Stay listening. You know, as we do on this show, you might get an opportunity to win one. Stay listening.
Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Oboli.
Sisi Oge, now I have two questions.
Oh, you have to quickly, because the lines are going crazy. One question. Give us one.
Okay. How was she able, what did she give to these people? Was it faith?
Okay.
Hope and peace.
Okay.
For them to vulnerable bear their souls
To her. Thank you. Great question. Great question.
The language barrier, how did she navigate it?
Okay, great question. Stay listening. I love you too. Bye-bye. Thank you so much, Mrs. Oboli. Stay listening though. Chitra, that was Mrs. Oboli. She absolutely loves your work. Write this question down. She wants to know, because the lines are going crazy. She wants to know how you were able to get them to actually open up to you, and how did you manage the language barrier. But she did say to thank you a great deal for actually opening up our eyes to let us know that it's much more than just the Chibok girls. Write that down. Let me just answer this.
Thank you very much.
Very quickly. Hello.
Yeah, good morning, Sergey.
Good afternoon. Yeah. Which kind morning? Which morning? This downfall is in the afternoon.
Sorry, downfall. Good afternoon. Sorry. This morning, This morning, I heard on an international news outlet that the United Nations has just provided $30 million to feed hungry.
Yes, that news broke yesterday. Yes, Titi Lokwe, quickly. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. So looking at this news, your topic today again, that now resonated with me that I could now gauge the intensity of the human problem, human crisis going on there. And about 2-3 days ago as well, they spoke about the most violent treatment gotten by aid workers all over the world.
Yeah.
they mentioned Sudan, they mentioned Nigeria.
Yeah.
So your guest again is now giving me that illumination again.
Indeed.
The kind of picture, I mean, that has happened.
That we
here.
didn't know before.
My question
Yes.
is this.
Yes.
Exactly. My question is this. In all of this now, we have seen automatically war crimes.
I need
We
you
have
to
seen
wrap up, Titi Lokwe. Yeah, go on.
Oh, Madam Oboli spoke now.
I know. I
Let me
rushed
speak
that
to-
too. Odama Bino. I rushed that too. But we have no time.
No problem. Now, my question is that in all of this now, should we not hold some people accountable, at least for war crimes, whether Nigerians or people in government or whatever? What does he think about that?
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Titi Lokwe wants to know. He absolutely, again, great work. Is saying that given now that we heard yesterday, the news actually broke yesterday, that the USA has now given Nigeria some 20 odd, $1 million towards, poverty. I think I can't remember the exact line. He says now, listening to you, it helps him to understand the gravity of what we're dealing with. However, his question to you is, do you not think it's time we held somebody accountable for all of this? I'm going to give you 2 minutes to answer those two questions.
Thank you so much, both of you, for these questions. I'll start with the question from, sorry, I don't think I quite caught her name. Is it Mrs. Iboli?
Mrs. Oboli. Mrs. Oboli. Oboli.
Mrs. Oboli, yes. So I think for me, one of the most important things that I had to do these interviews was to build trust with the people I was speaking to. And I found them in different ways. So one group of people are people who I knew through my work or who I worked with through my work. If you remember, I was talking about how I would be working in communities to help them identify their security threats, to figure out what they could do themselves or what they could advocate to other people for, setting up meetings with them. Me and my colleagues, we did this. And so me and my work, it was known in these communities already. And I think, honestly, people were just so happy that someone was interested in them, that they were willing to or wanting to sit down, spend the time talking with them, hearing their stories, because often there aren't many people who will do this, right? Or who have the time or the inclination to do this. And I think once people agreed to talk to me, I always started the interviews by asking them, please tell me your story, and you can spend as long or as little a time talking about it. And so that sometimes people spoke for 1 or 2 sentences. Sometimes they started talking and did not finish talking until, over an hour had passed. Because so much had happened to them and they wanted to talk, right? They wanted to talk. And because either they knew me or they knew the person who had introduced me to them.
Yeah.
There was some level of basis of trust.
Yeah.
And I was always very clear about me and what I wanted to do, what my purpose was. For some of them, I interviewed them for my work. And then afterwards I said, look, your story, people need to know about it. So can I come back and talk to you again? And so I was always very clear. And as I mentioned before, one of the things that I really tried to do whenever it was possible was to go back to people with the story that I had written and read it out to them, the language that they spoke, understood. And so they could give me feedback. They could change things, they could add things. And also when things were slightly unclear, I could ask them further questions.
Okay.
And honestly, these sessions were the best part of the process because people were so happy, and I feel like this is a very low requirement.
Yeah.
But not only that I had come and spoken to them at first, but that I came back. People felt a level of respect that they don't often receive from people, from other people.
Okay.
Right? And I had people say to me, I need to have this story. And I'm so looking forward when I go to my degree to give these
them
books out
wow
to people.
Wow.
Because even if they don't read English, right? There may be someone in their family who can read English,
Absolutely.
or just knowing that it's there, because people were telling me, my children, my grandchildren, they must read this. They must
Okay.
be able to read this, to know what we went through.
Okay, we'll be right back after this break. I'm still with Chitra. She's the author. The book is called The World in Our Hands. It was in our hands. Be right back.
We'll be back in a moment.
Attention, secondary schools in Lagos. Season 9 of the I Beg to Differ Secondary Schools Debate Tournament is coming this November. And this time, the battle for secondary schools with ultimate bragging right is officially on. Do you have what it takes to go head-to-head with the brightest young minds in Lagos? Can your school rise to the challenge and claim the crown? Then this is your moment. The I Beg to Differ Secondary Schools Debate is calling your school. Registration opens September 1 and closes September 30. Registration for the I Beg to Differ Season 9 is school-based, only for schools. So gather your team and secure your spot early. To register, visit www.nigeriainfo.fm. Click on the I Beg to Differ Debates banner on the homepage. Fill out the registration form and hit submit. I Beg to Differ, the Tournament of Champions.
Are you finding it difficult listening to your favorite talk radio Nigeria Info via the mobile app? Come closer. Let me fix that for you. Now launch the app on your device. Click the 3 lines on the top left corner of the app. Look for settings in the drop-down menu and click on it. Turn on the first option that you see. Make sure you turn on the option that says always use highest quality available audio. Now that you have done that, close the app and relaunch it. Voila! I did it! Oh, sorry, you did it. Now you can enjoy your radio anywhere, anytime. Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
.3 Nigeria Info, your number one station for talk. Let's talk.
Welcome back to Danfo Conversations. I'm still in conversation with Chitra Nagarajan, who is the author. The name of the book, some of you have written and asked, is The World Was in Our Hands. Voices from the Boko Haram conflict. The world was in our hands. Voices from the Boko Haram conflict. Right, Chitra, I'm going to give you a minute to quickly wrap up, answer both questions. I'm getting messages that I haven't even been able to read to you. Go ahead.
No problem. So Mrs. Abodi asked about how I managed the language barrier.
Yeah.
And the stories in this book, they're based on interviews that were done. In total, I think about 12 or 15 different languages. Now, me, I don't speak 12 or 15 different languages of the Lake Chad Basin region. So I really relied on my colleagues who facilitated or interpreted conversations. And you know, when a book comes out, you have one person's name on the cover.
Yeah.
But really, every single book, and especially this book, it's the work of a whole collective of people.
Right.
So yes, so that's the first question that I wanted to answer. And the second question,
So Titilopa's question.
About, is it not time we held someone accountable for all of this? So it depends what you mean by accountability, right? Like there have been some trials and sentencing of people who are part of Boko Haram. However, saying that, some people have been sentenced, some people have been freed, some people are going through rehabilitation programs, and it's, to some extent, it's unclear who is going through which category. And at the same time, when we're talking about holding people accountable for all of this, there are the people who are part of Boko Haram who committed the atrocities. But as I mentioned, there were human rights abuses committed by all sides, including community militias and Nigerian soldiers, I'm sorry to say it. And we also need accountability for those atrocities. as well as accountability for the root causes of conflict. So such things, a group like Boko Haram, it doesn't grow from nowhere.
Yeah.
You need to have certain conditions to make it happen, make it possible. And in Northeast Nigeria, the conditions were right because of corruption.
Hold that thought. We'll be back after the news.
Radio plus information.
Are we back at the news? Right, okay. The news is coming on and I'll call you back. She's just going to do the news for 1 minute.
Thank you.
News headlines.
We are in a time where people yearn for information.
Information is quick. The larger the reach, the better.
Bits,
Pieces,
and the whole. All the details right here on Nigeria Info.
Let's talk. It's 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock. Conversation are here on Nigeria Info.
How many this type of wicked attack has affected in the other part of this country? So that's what we see for ourselves.
I'm not supporting stealing, but these politicians need to be taught a lesson.
Your number one station for talk.
99.3.
99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
Welcome back to Danfo Conversations. I am in special conversation with none other than Chitra, who is the author of The World Was in Our Hands, Voices from the Boko Haram Conflict. And indeed, I'm getting a message here saying, Sisi Oge, I just bought the book on Amazon UK, but only just realized Roving Heights bookstore has it in Lagos. The same person wrote, wow, this interview is so intriguing and an eye-opener. My feelings are so conflicted because I don't know how to feel. I am traumatized, so I don't know how those who survived this and are coping, including Chitra, who had to listen to these stories firsthand. That's from a listener. Thank you so much. I have a question here. Good afternoon, Ireti, aka Sisege. What is your guest's opinion on the various aid grants to people in IDP camps, knowing that with the huge fund, the people still suffer in IDP camps? That's Peter Bonds from Shango Tedo. Write that down because we're going into the last 20 minutes. I'm going to answer this call. Write those questions down, Chitra. We're in a fast track time now. Hello. Very quickly, please. Hello. Good afternoon. Turn off your radio, please. Ouch. Yeah, go on.
Can I go on?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, this is Godman.
Okay, go ahead.
I wanted to know, I have a question for her. She's doing a great job. I want to thank her first and foremost. I appreciate all she's doing. I wanted to know, it's very dangerous to go out there, get all this information from those people. How did she escape all the harm? Because some of those guys may not want information going out.
Thank you.
So
how was she able to circumvent that? Thank you very much. Thank you. Keep listening. So that was my lovely listener. He said, great job. Great book. And he wants to know, because it's dangerous out there, how are you able to circumvent the dangers? Indeed, some of the people there, they don't want these stories to get out. So how did you manage that? I'm going to give you 2 minutes to deal with all of those questions because the lines are going, and I still want us to do 1 or 2 talk about the book and yourself.
Thank you, Ireti. So in terms of, yes, there are definitely lots of dangers and risks. I mean, dangers and risks in terms of doing the interviews, but also to the people who gave their stories afterwards, if someone finds out what they said. So I think when doing the interviews, I was very careful. I was doing interviews in very risky places also. And during the period, there would be times that I would go to a community and then the next day or the day after that, it would be attacked. And I was just very thankful that nothing happened, either to me or my colleagues or the people involved. I also was very clear. I told everyone that their stories would be anonymized because I didn't want a situation where someone had criticized maybe their community leader or the governor or the soldiers, and it would come back to harm them. And so there are no names given in the book. At the end of every story, I write when I did the interview and where I did that interview. For some people, I didn't even include that information. So, for example, for the soldiers with whom I spoke to, who were very critical about their leaders and about the politicians, I didn't include that information. For the queer people who I interviewed, I didn't include that information either. So I really tried to keep the potential risks for me, for my colleagues, but also for the narrators in mind. I think this question about when there's so much aid, why are people still suffering is a very real one. I would also like to point out that the amount of aid that's going to Northeast Nigeria has fallen over the recent years. And so people have spoken about how that has affected them and their lives. I mean, ideally, you would have a situation where you have aid for a certain amount of time in terms of food distribution, shelter, other things, to enable people to restart their lives. And then you can pull out. What has happened in Northeast Nigeria, as I mentioned before, is people have restarted their lives, their livelihoods, and then their livelihoods have been destroyed. In large part due to climate change, but also continued insecurity. So it's not just that people have been displaced once or twice, they are displaced 3, 4, 5 times and are continuing to be displaced. So that is also what makes it difficult, especially when the amount of aid that is available has fallen compared to what it was before.
Yeah. There's another passage that I want to read out here. It's oh God, Chitra, you've done an exceptional job with this book. I can't even. I wished I had the talent, but I don't. I can only cha. As they say, cho on down for conversations. There's a chapter here called "I Saved All of Them, All Except One." It is so. Oh my gosh. My heart sunk. It speaks to defiance. It speaks to strength. It speaks to resilience. It speaks to trauma. It speaks to a woman who stood and dared. But this is the other thing. It speaks to not just spirituality. It speaks to luck. Because here was a woman with what? 8 children. So let me read. Where is it that I wanted to read? Right. Because what they wanted were men. And she said, where is it? Everybody was running, or at that time I was over 6 months pregnant with my 8th child and worried how I could keep my family safe, especially when they started killing indiscriminately. I had never seen people kill like this before. I saw so much blood that I felt as if I wanted to die. Their primary target was the military, but if they saw any man or boys, they would shoot them, even children as young as 12, 10-year-olds, including my husband. He was amongst the first they killed on their way into town. I didn't know for some time I was hoping he had found a way to escape until I saw his body lying where they had killed him. Men started coming to my house, pleading for help. Every time I brought out a ladder so they could climb into my ceiling and hide. They were ordinary people, my neighbors, men selling goods in the local shop. I didn't even know some of them. At that time, men were running and entering any house they saw where the women would hide and keep them safe. Excuse me. I hid 19 men in total and saved all of them except one. Her story doesn't end there. You've got to buy the book, I'm telling you. It's called The World in Our Hands. Voices from the Boko Haram conflict. Yes, and I'm going to say it. Whether you like it or not, on Down for Conversations, we not only do full disclosure, we go where others dare not go. The author is Chitra Nagarajan. She's a journalist. But the publisher is my sister. Yes, Bibi Bakari Yusuf of Cassava Republic. So you bet you I'm proud. Chitra, that story. Talk to me. It's insane.
Oh my goodness. It's amazing. She actually was the first person I ever interviewed. I first interviewed her in December 2016, and the book has just come out already. So imagine this took 8.5 years to put together. And so it was a real labor of love. And telling other people her story was the reason that I decided to make this into a book, because she is amazing. And I think sometimes people from other parts of Nigeria have a particular idea of what people in the north are like.
Oh, they
Northern
do.
Muslims.
Not from other parts of Nigeria, from the rest of Nigeria.
Yeah. So if you hear, right? So she's pregnant with her 8th child. You have a particular idea of what that means, right? The kind of woman she is. But she hid 19 men. One of them, unfortunately, was killed, but 18 of them, while being heavily pregnant, she dressed them in women's clothing, told them how to walk like women, and smuggled them into the mountains.
You didn't say she put them in burqas, not just women's clothing.
Yes. Yeah, she put them in niqab and told them, like, don't look at the man, like, this is how women look, this is how women walk. And she smuggled them into safety. And then when she came back, she did this over several trips. And I should also mention, it wasn't just her, it was everybody also in her town. And this is something I saw in several places in Borno, because the fighters were coming and killing men and boys over the age of 9. They hid men, they smuggled men, they saved men. And I really wanted to have this story in the book because I think the men who she saved, when I interviewed her, she was still in touch with several of them. Some of them are in Abuja, some in Borno, some in Yola, in Adamawa State, some in Kano. And every once in a while, they call to thank her because honestly, they would be dead without her.
Yeah.
But saying that, I was talking to women's rights activists in Borno, and they were telling me how even today, and this is just a few years on from when it happened, men, when women are mentioned this time, say, don't talk about that. Because it reminds them of a time that they were weak.
Wow.
Because men, remember what I said earlier? Men are supposed to defend their families. They're supposed to defend women and children. So imagine a man, not only that he can't defend his family, but he has to be saved by mere women.
Yeah.
Right? And then you also have a situation where men feel ashamed for their weakness and their vulnerability. And they're shamed by other men. So men from other communities where this does not happen say, how can you talk? Are you not from so place where you had to have women saving you?
Wow.
And so this is why I really wanted, this is the reason why I put this book together, because I wanted to act against this erasure. So people knew what women had done. People knew about men's vulnerability. And in the future, so people in the future, I hope, cannot say our tradition and our culture is like this, because some bright young woman can point and say, but there was this book that was written during those dark times that happened 50 years ago, 200 years ago. And look at what the women did.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important because there is this deliberate and also unconscious process of erasing the contributions of women to society, which does a real disservice both to the women themselves and also to society at large.
Absolutely. Chitra, oh my word. Most people are probably thinking Chitra. Her name is Chitra. Is she Nigerian? Where is she from? Chitra, you were born in Maiduguri. Tell us about you. Just so they get it.
Yes. So when you look at me, you can tell that I'm not Nigerian, right? But my parents came from India to Nigeria in the 80s, part of a wave of Indian doctors and teachers who came at that time. So whenever I'm in Borno and people hear about my story, they always tell me about their Indian teacher that they had or the Indian friend that they used to play with in primary school. And so my parents were working at the University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital, which is where I was born. And I spent the first years of my life in Maiduguri. And then I left as a child. And I came back to Nigeria in 2013 to work on human rights and peace building, looking across the whole country. So not just on the Northeast, but the Middle Belt, the Northwest, and the South, the Niger Delta. And the first time I went to Maiduguri, honestly, I almost cried. Just for me, like the personal importance of going back to my birthplace. And also seeing what had happened in Maiduguri. My parents always, even to this day, they talk. Borno is known as the home of peace. And they talk. My father says the best times of his life were in Borno. You know, he was newly married. He talks about has had his first child. They had parties like a few times a week. They would go picnics to Sambisa Forest.
Wow. Sorry, say that again. They would go on picnic to Sambisa.
They would go on picnics to Sambisa. At the weekend, they would just drive to Lake Chad and talk to one of the fishermen there to go out on a boat trip around Lake Chad. And the idea that these places that I had heard about and that I had taken my first steps on the campus of the University of Maiduguri, what had happened there was really painful. And I think this is the case for many people who grew up in Borno, like what has happened in Northeast Nigeria, and that Maiduguri and Borno has become a place where the rest of the country, when they go, people view them with suspicion.
Of course.
People myself, when I was in Lagos a few years ago, I remember telling people that I was living in Maiduguri and them saying, Maiduguri, is that a place that people live? I'm like, yes, millions of people live in Maiduguri. So I think just like the change in what has become of Maiduguri is something that I'm always very conscious of. And so one of the reasons that I do the work that I do is hoping to return to a time or move forward to a time of peace and harmony.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let me read this message out to you. Good afternoon, Sisioge, my one and only radio goddess. I extend warm greetings to your esteemed guest. Today, I speak not just as Yomi from Muriokonla, VI, but as a deeply wounded citizen. My soul is shattered. My bones and marrow cry out for justice in a land where injustice has been normalized. As I expressed yesterday in I Bet Today for Democracy in Nigeria has failed its people. The lamentations, agony, and pain of innocent citizens are being ignored by government, but as yet to hold sponsors of Boko Haram accountable. How long must we endure this silence? How long must we watch impunity thrive? Is it time we consider legal action against our government at the international level for its failure to protect its citizens and uphold basic security? I will get the book. I've seen one. The World is in Our Hands by Chitra Nagarajan, published by Cassava Republic. Thank you so much for that. Somebody's calling. We don't have time. You got to make it 30 seconds. I'm going to pick up your call. We're about to close the show. The Danfor's about to park. Hello. Very quickly. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Very quickly. 1 minute.
This is Collins from Irujuleki.
Go ahead, Collins. Very quickly. Literally 30 seconds.
Ask your guests. In the process of her interview, whether she was able to extract information about the motive of the killings, whether it is political, religious, or ethnic.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Collins wants to know if any of the people you interviewed actually gave you, if they expressed an opinion on what they believe the motives were for, Boko Haram. But before that, because we're about to run out of time, it's insane. We're giving away 2 books, Chitra. You get to choose. You've been listening to questions from listeners.
Between the listeners?
Yes. Who do you pick? Who do you want to pick? Very quickly.
Let's go for the first caller.
Mrs. Oboli.
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
And maybe the first caller and Yomi.
Yomi from Muriokonla. Okay, excellent. Right. Mrs. Oboli and Yomi from Muriokonla. You're not just getting this book. I'm going to be inviting you to come and talk about it. It's not ending here because this is Nigeria and we're not playing. This is a whole whole important conversation that nobody is having. Chitra, over to you if you can answer that question. Did any of them actually give you an idea, express an opinion on why they thought this was happening? You have a minute.
So I spoke to many people who had chosen to join Boko Haram. We know that many people were abducted and forced against their will, but many people actually chose. And they spoke about a range of motives, from financial incentives when they were living in economic hardship, to religious motives, to anger at the government and their local leaders for inequality, corruption, unjust decisions, not feeling that they could get ahead in life because they saw all these being given to people who knew someone, and feeling that they saw Boko Haram were aiming. And remember, it started off as an anti-corruption movement, right? And so
we did not get to talk about that. We've got 30 seconds. Go on. Talk to us about that anti-corruption movement. Yes.
This is how they started. So preaching against the corruption, the inequality, the nepotism that was there, which they linked to democracy, the coming of democracy in 1999, and the form of electoral politics, whereby politicians, the only time you saw them was around elections, where they were trying to buy your vote or mobilizing people to engage in thuggery or violence in order to capture elections. And so when people see that, they either saw the state through that, or after the conflict started, through soldiers who then came and, ransacked the place, killed people. As I mentioned before, they couldn't distinguish between who was Boko Haram and not. And so if this is the only idea that you have of the government, many people were very angry and motivated by wanting to get revenge, especially if they had family who were killed, brothers who were detained. So, I think we need to really, when we talk about accountability, it needs to be accountability not only for the people who committed violence, but for the reasons why it happened in the first place.
For the root cause. Thank you so much, Chitra. Thank you. Mrs. Oboli and Yomi, Zainab will be in touch with you. What? No, Mrs. Obolia, Zainab will be in touch with you. You've got one book each. You've got to read it and come back. Chitra, God bless you. Thank you for the work you do. I hope we get autographed ones because my listeners are special. The Danfo is about to park. I'll be back at 4 o'clock. Borderlines. We're going to Yemen. Yes. Who else will take you there from Nigeria? Just me. Yours, one and only, Ireti Bakari Yusuf.
It's
Right back
star
at
3
4.
hash.